Years earlier, the city had gotten into him. As Jonathan D'Souza set out to work this morning, he could feel the sun on his skin, soaking his vest and shirt. He glanced at his watch. It was 9:20 a.m. It would take him 30 minutes to reach from Mahim to Hill Road. But it became an hour's walk if beggars and second-hand cars blocked the promenades, or if the traffic moved to the slow choreography of tricolored signals. Today too, he walked, but midway, he turned his gaze to the road leading to Bandra train station. He stared at this road for a while, then slung off his bag, rolled his cuffs, loosened his ties, and walked toward the train station. When he reached the train station, he took the first train that came. The train was going in the opposite direction. At Andheri, harried travellers pushed themselves out and pushed him onto his foes on the platform. They also hurriedly picked him up to his feet. From there, John crossed an overhead bridge and boarded an outstation train. In this long blue train were plenty of empty berths. He selected one empty berth, skid into it, and slept, and slept, and slept. 14 hours passed. When he woke, he went to the door to watch the whizzing scenery move by. Tall buildings had turned to small buildings to houses, houses to sparse houses on the patches of brown and green. No tree, no thought, just the amusement of being alive. Then John went back again into one of the lower berths and slept for all the hours in his life that he hadn't slept because of Wilson. It was 7:30 p.m. Mama K sat on the stool in the veranda waiting for John. Usually he came home by 6:30. Why was he so delayed today? Diwali was just round the corner. She watched the sky, the twilight sky dimming to an indigo, and lanterns in every apartment in front of her, suffusing into orange flares with fairy lights. The air was infused with and rife with the smoke of firecrackers. Maybe that's why he was delayed. In the adjacent room, Wilson was jumping up and down the sofa. The side that he was jumping on had lost its spring. It had a tear from which the foam was spilling out like a smile. Wilson was 37, but 4 in his head. He would usually sleep at 5 p.m. every evening and wake at 4 a.m. in the morning and bang his steel spoon to the plate wanting food. Kay had to rush and keep the breakfast ready in 10 minutes. She kept the batter ready the previous night in the fridge, a wok and a ladle in it on the stove, everything the night before. Wilson liked 3 kinds of food: lop lop, frita and kiki, lopsy, banana fritters and rice kheer. The noises that Wilson made did not disturb the neighbors in the building, but it definitely troubled Jonathan, even if he put wedges of thermocol and cardboard in all the gaps in his bedroom door. Kay felt bad about this, but she couldn't help it. She wasn't going to send Wilson to a care home, even if that was the way to go. Jonathan would have to adjust to their house. Even half a tablet of sleeping pills caused different reactions in Wilson. Once, he didn't wake until noon. Once, he didn't sleep until noon. Once, he didn't speak the whole day. When the train reached Mathura, Jonathan D'Souza woke and looked at the train station. He got off and went to a tea stall owner and said, "I don't have any money." The tea stall owner looked him up and down. "Have you been robbed?" He gave him a small cup of tea and 2 glucose biscuits, and Jonathan gratefully had them, watching for the TC. Before the TC could come, he went towards the next train. This train was headed for Darjeeling. Jonathan boarded it, and as the train chugged on its tracks, his previous life became a file of information. Mama, Wilson, Bombay, they were all names now. 4 panic-stricken, worrisome days, and Kay did everything she could do to track Jonathan. She called his office 1,000,000 times. Relatives and neighbors went to Jonathan's office, then to the police station. They printed posters and plastered them on the walls everywhere from Mahim to Bandra. They even found his bag by the roadside and handed it over to Kay. His empty wallet was in the bag, with the full steel tiffin of stale fish cutlets and minced chops. She even broke a fixed deposit to bribe the policemen to keep this case urgent and relevant for the next 6 months, and to use the money for newspaper ads for missing persons. A year later, and nothing had happened. What took its place was a long wait. Now aeroplanes that flew over the building made diverse sounds, and Kay began counting the aeroplanes from now to the last time she had seen Jonathan. Stories took the form of theories that maybe Jonathan had gone to become a sadhu. Maybe he had gone to a shrine to attain sainthood. Maybe he had been hit in a hit-and-run accident. Maybe he had been tipped off the Arabian Sea. Maybe there was women trouble. Kay thought she should sift and rummage once again through Jonathan's rooms for signs and telltales. 20 years passed by, and every tear, every fear dried. Now what took its place was prayers. Mama Kay, sitting on the stool in the veranda, praying for Jonathan, for the evening when he would return from work, for the morning when he would set out to work, and for that one time when he turned on the road to the Bandra train station. John could still hear the swearing and whirring of the Xerox machine and the printing machine, the conversations in the office, the office din, the telephone rings, everything that seemed urgent but irrelevant the next day. He would turn in his sleep, and all these thoughts and ideas and sounds would vanish. He stared at Mount Everest. He had a small place in Nagarkot, which was filled with jute sacks and cane mats. A Coke bottle was a bulb holder. A crate was his chair. An earthen pot was his cooking utensil. He wore a jute tunic with its sleeves shorn off. He had grown a long beard. He ate from dustbins and had lost teeth. Now as he looked at Mount Everest, he thought he was one day going to climb and embrace its naked skin against its naked chest. The noise was there in the quiet too. The crackle of snow, the melt of slush. It was as if a beast was going to awaken from the summit. Jonathan could see his thoughts in etheric bubbles float by as his scalp went itchy and dry, and there were grumbling sounds in his stomach as if furniture was being moved around the place. Now Wilson was 57. He was still 4 in his head, and Kay was satisfied with that. She felt it redeemed, that time had stopped at least somewhere. Now she was 77. She did not sleep. What if something happened to her? Who would take care of Wilson? Now as she sat on the stool in the balcony, she did not think of Jonathan. Jonathan was a name. She thought of Wilson. Wilson, who was with her before and after her cataract operation, before and after her heart bypass operation, before and after her uterus removal operation. When Wilson was 3, he had taken a liking for kites, and Joseph had brought 2 kites home. The kites fluttered and stuttered in the wind. One day it so happened that while Wilson was playing with the kite, the pressure cooker whistled and Kay rushed to turn the knob off. The kite got ensnared in a branch, and Wilson tried to rescue the kite by moving over the ledge and toppling off, landing on the ground below with a thud. Kay was very angry with the small houses of Bombay. It did not have grills. It did not even have a slab or a parapet to arrest the fall. She left her job as an accountant. 5 years late for Wilson was okay. 10 years late for Wilson was okay. 20 years late was okay. She hoped but he would recover. She missed seeing Joseph in that time, he who had collected a lot of agony inside him and had grown very quiet. He died of a massive heart attack. Now, what gave Kay company was the noises that came from the house, the doorbells, the hiss of the stove grate, the cough of the toaster, the lecture of the masala grinder, or even the city, with its tire screeches on tar, its blaring sounds from marriage halls, its factory sirens, telling Kay when the city slept, when it woke, when was an afternoon hush, when was the peak time rush. There was a clock outside the city, which was the Arabian Sea, with its row of waves and its ebb. She also relied on the clocks in the house that spoke of different times. She didn't bother to synchronize these times. Wilson had an alarm clock that told him when to sleep, and Kay liked the noises of the toilet flushes from the floors above that gave her company. Soon it started, the stiffening of joints. She couldn't stand long enough to see a curry boil. She needed to sit on a stool, and if she didn't find the stool, she could fall to the gravity of the kitchen floor and take endless hours to find the granite counter and pull herself back up. Her knees would get stuck to their joints. It was time to think of Wilson. She phoned the church parishioners. They had done their homework. Wilson was to go to a mental hospital. Once Wilson left, Kay rocked in her rocking chair all through the days. She didn't have to keep track of the fridge and its emptiness. She lived on bananas and rice kanji through the weeks. When Wilson died, no one informed Kay for 8 months. As the snow melted, John knew that he was going to climb Mount Everest. There was a silent eye watching and waiting for him. Kay asked the parishioners how Wilson was, and they said he was all right. Now that she was alone, the city kept encouraging her to move on. There was a new sound emerging every half an hour now. Some train from a metro station over the Western Express Highway. It made a chugging sound at her left ear. She decided she was going to cook food now. Before the next train came, this chugging sound reminding her so much of the way Joseph chuckled when he couldn't understand a joke, or the way Wilson giggled when he got his lop lop and frita, or the way Jonathan's guitar sounded behind his closed bedroom door.
Hi guys, if you really like what we are doing here, please like and share our content and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. Keep watching Kalan.